Hey, it's Alex Mitz again. Let's talk about inbox etiquette. There are a few things I want to cover here, mainly about what not to do. What not to do to your peers, what not to do to casting directors, and what not to do for everything else. Let's start with peers and colleagues. For voice actors with some recent success, a lot of these messages start with, hey, how did you land X? Or how did you get into Y? The answer I can guarantee is always hard work, practice, coaching, and most importantly, auditioning. But a lot of these messages come with the pretense of, can you show me, or can you tell me, or worse yet, can you refer me? And even better, they come from people who have never sent you a message prior to this one. Don't do that. If a voice actor you follow has experienced some sort of success, it is not something that they can just give to you, and it is definitely not something that they owe you. For the uninitiated, voice actors put in countless hours of practice, training, and networking to land the interesting roles that we do land. We have spent lots of dollars to pay more experienced and better professionals than ourselves to tell us where our weak points are and to help us shore them up. And that's not meant as a point of intimidation. I'm simply trying to state a fact because that's something that actors do continuously. And every minute that we're not leveraging our next opportunity is another minute that someone else can squeeze in. Don't get me wrong, we're all very supportive of one another. But we are in direct competition with each other, albeit some very, very friendly competition. I've literally recommended one person to a studio I work with, but I consider this person a friend. We've chatted on phone calls, we hype each other's work, we've established a connection. I know this person can walk the walk and genuinely has an interest in my success. So when he wanted to know about a recent project that I did work on, I offered to recommend him to that studio that I work with. And I knew he wasn't asking for a handout. In fact, he didn't even ask, I just did it. He was just simply stoked for my good fortune and wanted to have a real conversation about the cool thing I just did. So please, don't drop into what is practically a stranger's inbox and ask how they did it, or how did you book that? Or, the answer is always going to be the same, and no one likes to feel as though they're being solicited for opportunities. I'm very fortunate that a voiceover professional who a lot of us follow has written some words for me that help fit right into this video. Special thanks to Michael Schwalbe for contributing the next section on the topic of ask-holes, which I will read verbatim. I feel like I should pull out like a scroll with his words on them or something, but anyway, here we go. For networking, think about what you can contribute rather than what you can get out of a connection. Don't be an asshole. Does your behavior fit into any of the following types of ask-holery? Type 1. These assholes will always ask for tips, advice, mentoring, etc., then do the opposite of it, or promptly ignore it, or repeatedly ask the same questions time after time without acting on the answer. Type 2. These assholes have no initiative. They will ask your advice about every possible thing, even when it's very readily searchable and learnable on their own. And they get offended or downright ignore your suggestions or attempt to help them start learning for themselves rather than solely mooching your knowledge. Type 3, the asshole that has zero awareness. This type of asshole will try to poach your connections or clients by straight up asking you for your client list or inappropriate referrals. Bonus asshole points if you barely know this asshole, which is generally the case. Type 4. Type 4 asshole isn't mutually exclusive, and none of them are really. You'll frequently find this type of asshole intermingling with other types. This asshole doesn't interact with you socially or emotionally in any way outside of trying to repeatedly, quote, pick your brain. They almost always use this exact phrasing. Type 4 asshole will then take up way too much of your time asking you stuff, and will also never offer to compensate you for your experience, even when their constant barrage of questions goes way beyond the boundaries of simple mentoring or advice. Conclusion? Don't be an asshole. Thank you, Michael. Your wisdom is greatly appreciated. Next, let's talk about casting directors. This one's a little trickier because you have to reach out to them to get something, but reaching out pretty much always means an audition. Direct solicitation does a lot less than you think. But if you do decide to go the direct route rather than wait for a public casting call, that doesn't mean you should be a jerk about it. This is the time where you have to start thinking of both parties as businesses. They may have a problem, and that problem is they need the perfect voice to fit their character. And you may have a solution, the voice they're looking for. Extra emphasis on may because you do not get to make that decision. They do. Whatever you do, do not inundate them with messages, requests, etc. They will hate you regardless of how perfect your solution may actually be. In my humble opinion, it's a lot more important to be easy to work with than be extraordinarily talented. Yes, there is a minimum level of talent you must have, but when all other things are equal, not being a pain in the ass to work with will get you much farther than raw talent. I digress. Let's get back to the point. Casting directors post casting calls and open auditions. You respond. And if they like you and your talent enough, you may end up on a closed list, which is a good thing. Sure, cold emailing is a thing and it does work occasionally, but you have to put in lots of time and be able to handle lots of rejection and rude responses if you're gonna go that route. But if a casting director has chummed the water, so to speak, that is not an open invitation for anything beyond this isolated opportunity. Good projects that will actually see the light of day are hard to come by. Good voice actors are more common than you might think. So in order to stand out, you have to do less, not more, when it comes to communication. Some notes from a casting person who has chosen to remain anonymous. Remember, casting or not getting cast is almost never a result of your acting. It's a selection, not a rejection. Only one person can be picked from hundreds or thousands of auditions. Next, casting directors are not always content creators, so there might be some disconnect there in regard to things being out of your hands. Also, how you conduct yourself does play a factor. When all else is equal, being an upstanding person and being easy to work with are really important to the team casting a project. I feel like I remember saying that a couple minutes ago about that other thing. Great minds. That doesn't mean being pious all the time. It just means don't create drama or a hostile environment when it's a small hill to die on. Direct quote from this person. You can post your own work as often as you want for no reason. It lets you be seen without harassing professionals. Building on how you conduct yourself, I'm also going to drop a direct quote from this person involved in casting because I couldn't have said it better myself. Quote, Twitter may not be showing up for work for many people, but for some it is. And those people need to consider how others show up to their place of work. I wouldn't hire anyone who comes into where I work and makes things uncomfortable for those that I'm at work with. I just know it wouldn't work. So yeah, remember that in a time where remote work is the norm, or the goal, for a lot of us, social media is our office. Treat it as such. All right, let's talk about everyone else. Regardless of whether you're in the arts or any sort of professional space, messages out of nowhere that simply start with hi or hey are not as disarming as you think they are. In fact, they're a bit off-putting. The other person doesn't know you. They don't know what you want. And if you suspect that this other person may get a lot of attention from like dudes or bros trying to quote-unquote slide into their DMs, your assumption's probably right. And you're probably also coming across as that type of person, so just don't. Be clear with your intentions right up front. Don't leave any room for assumption. And if you are in fact DM sliding, please reconsider. This poor recipient of your message doesn't need yet another one of those in their lives destroying their faith in humanity. They're just trying to live their lives. Let them. And that's it. It really boils down to be genuine, be cool, and don't ask for too much. Give more than you get. And in my opinion, that's just a good motto of life regardless of whether you're sending an email or just being a good human.